When we see an address while browsing the web, it typically looks something like this. And there are a few components to this address. There's the protocol, which is the language that we use to communicate, and we're going to always use either HTTP or HTTPS, which is the encrypted version of HTTP for the protocol. Then we have : and the host name, which is the name of the computer that we're communicating with. So what this means is that there are a bunch of servers that we could communicate with, and this is the name of the specific one that we want to talk to. Then we have a slash, and after that comes information about what we're asking for from this computer. And this has multiple parts. There's the path, which is like the directory that we're asking for information from. And then there's sometimes a query string, which contains key-value pairs. So the path in the query string goes down to the server, and it lets the server know what we're asking for, and the server will respond, hopefully with the data that we want. So here's a real example of a URL, and we can break it down into the components that we just talked about. The protocol is HTTPS, the hostname is itunes.apple.com, the path is search, and the query string is this long query string. And I want to talk about this query string because it kind of has its own syntax. The query string encodes key-value pairs, which is the same concept as a Python dictionary, but it has a different syntax. The query string starts off with the question mark to signal the start of the query string. Then it has key-value pairs separated by ampersands, and here we have two key-value pairs. The keys are term and entity, and after each key we put an equal sign, and then the value for that key. So here are a few examples of query strings. So we have the one that we had before where term is Ann Arbor and entity is podcast. Then we have a query string where key 1 is val1, key 2 is val2, and key 3 is val3. And we have a query string where v is gii, and so on. Now, we typically don't have to type in query strings manually when we use the requests.get method. We instead just pass in params as a dictionary, as we'll talk about in the next video. And when we do this, then requests.get will automatically add the parameters to the base URL and form its own valid query string. So URLs have a bunch of parts. There's the protocol, the host name, the path, and the query string, which has its own syntax.